Yeah, I mean, it depends on the market, obviously, but I mean, investing in cash flow. If you want to get out of your 9 to 5, if you want to leave that job, you want to make sure you have the cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on how much money you need per month. I mean, it's right out of Rich Dad Poor Dad, but make sure you have enough cash flow coming in to replace your income.
Right.
And a good rule of thumb that I use is a minimum of $100 per door when we're talking about cash flow.
All right. Welcome, everybody, back to the Scale Nation podcast. I'm your host, Manny. I'm here with my co-host, Zach. And today's topic, we wanted to touch about, just to give some background on today's topic. I was reaching out to a couple of friends and asking them what they thought about the podcast when they were watching it. And then they followed up and telling me that the podcast is very good information, but not enough, guidance on how to use that information. So today I thought, why not get started how I got started with, real estate and everything, is how to pick a market. So today we're going to focus mostly on how you pick a market and what the steps you need to do to pick a market. I don't know if you've had any experience, Zach, when you come to picking a market. I remember you picked PA or Pittsburgh because you came from somewhere else, right?
Yeah, so I mean, my market is Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania. When I first started buying properties, it was essentially just where I could touch, where I could go. I plotted a compass down on a map and I drew a circle, and it was a 45-minute drive from my home in that circle. And that's where I searched. That's where I searched for properties. But that's also where, once I defined my market and where I was, then that's where I did a research at. Small town. West Pennsylvania is a lot of small towns. So
Yeah, and
small
that's what
towns,
I
the
tried doing
market,
as
and there's
well.
a lot of different, avenues of different markets, versus say just Pittsburgh in general. But I basically just grew that circle to a 2-hour range now that I'm driving 2 hours into Pittsburgh. But
it's worth it. It's worth it.
absolutely. And for me, I gotta be there, right? I gotta be able to get to
Okay.
the property. I gotta be able to walk the property. I gotta be able to know the area.
That's a good jump way into, for me. When I wanted to do it, I tried doing it exactly what you did, like a 2-hour radius from my home or something close. Unfortunately for me, I lived in Florida, Miami, Florida to be exact, and I didn't have as much capital as you need to invest in Miami. We're talking about single families over here at the time. We're going for 600,000 to 700,000. So imagine a multi. We're talking minimum $1 million. And don't get me wrong, if you can find a cash flow, it can cash flow for you. And I'm pretty sure there's deals outside of like North Florida and a little bit higher that can be better, but those are a little bit outside my market at the time, right? And I would have to, either drive 4 hours just to get out of Miami to get to Orlando, or even a little bit higher or elsewhere to get to like Gainesville and Jacksonville. But at that point, I figured that I was in too many markets at once. And a friend of ours that we know told me, hey, just pick one market and hyper focus on that market. And at the time, he told me, you know what? Choose Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh. You got friends in Pittsburgh. And that's how I met you, Zach. And I was like, okay, hyper focus on the market. So let's segue into, how do you pick a market? How do you find a market to pick? For me, there's a couple aspects that I try to narrow down. And I guess number one is interest. Right? Do you have interest in that market? I had friends in Pittsburgh, right? And I've never been, at the time, I've never been to Pittsburgh before, but I had friends from there. I figured out, because I have friends there, maybe I could work with them together and will help me, bring this market to life, or they can help me learn
Yes,
more about this market.
You already had
Exactly.
resources
And
there telling you
then not
about
only
the
that,
area. Yeah,
exactly, yes. And not only that,
bad boots on the ground.
they help me learn about stuff. Like, could you imagine if I tried coming in blind? I would have never known about Wilsonsburg, and it's its own different thing.
Yeah.
I saw deals in Wilsonsburg. It's like, wow, this deal looks awesome. I'm like, no, bro, you don't want to buy there. That's a different piece altogether. So yes. So A
Yeah,
good
Western
thing
Pennsylvania is
there.
definitely different from Florida. We can get a good house up here for 150 to $200,000, single
Right.
family. I mean,
Right.
I've mentioned before in the podcast, I purchased 4 single families for 70K,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
those cash flowed great. But they were in a small coal town I knew nothing about until I walked it, until I did my research in the area, and you're talking tenants that needed to travel to the closest city, which was, I wouldn't call it a city. It was Punxsutawney, right? Groundhog. That
Wow.
that's where they worked. They worked in Punxsutawney, and they drove into back home into the small town because the rental rates there are different. You have a lot of low income around the area, so you got to know that. We had a bunch of Section 8, so that's a different beast altogether when you're making sure that those units qualify for Section 8. But as long as it's in the county, as long as you have interest in it, the tenant will, the housing authority will pay.
Yeah. And that's why I learned a lot. It was for me, people are like, Pittsburgh, why'd you pick Pittsburgh? It's like, well, I can do a 4-hour drive from Miami to Orlando, or I can do a 2-hour flight from Pittsburgh. It's still travel time. It doesn't matter if I'm flying or driving. I gotta travel, right?
Yeah.
So I figured, let me go to a market that meets my capital a little bit better. So that goes into one of our points. Match the market to your capital. For me, I didn't have a lot of capital to get started. I had maybe $100,000, $200,000 to get started, and I
Actually,
figured,
more than I had ever available to get started.
yeah, I got lucky, right? I got lucky in the beginning. My
Yep.
dad, the second I finished high school, my dad was like, "You gotta start saving money," and I was like, "I don't know if I'm like, why?" And then my brother already at the time saved 10K, and I was like, "I'm not, I can save 10K." And then he was saving, and I was saving, and it became like a
Uh-huh.
our family man is like, "How much you got in your bank?" I got this much. How much you got? So that's what that became like our scale, right? But yes, so but at the time, if I were to invest, let's say in 2019, 2018, $200,000 would have got me really far in Florida. But unfortunately, I had to learn about investing in everything right after the market skyrocketed, and then everything just got priced out of my range. And
Uh-huh.
because of that the price hike, I had to find a market that matched my capital. Pittsburgh, luckily, was one of those markets. I can use it. My capital spreads far and wide there, especially if I use financing. I could purchase all cash if I needed to. I didn't want to, but I could.
Yeah,
And because I
you definitely
could, it
want to get,
makes me
you want
feel
to
more,
leverage financing, right?
yeah, it makes me more comfortable. Yes. I wanted to leverage financing, right? So I can buy multiple properties instead of just one. Right.
Biggest key to growth is other people's money. So
Exactly. OPM. Exactly. So that's one of our points. If you're starting from 100,000 or 0,000, you could do it with zero, but it's like, for example, if I were to have to purchase a property in Miami, let's say a multifamily, let's say a 2-unit. Let's say that 2-unit only costs us 600,000, and I have to raise for that. The closing cost for that would be significantly more, and you have to raise significantly more capital for that down payment from more individuals than a
yeah, you're
property
talking
in.
for 600,000. You're talking 120 for a down payment, with another 30
Exactly.
for closing. So you're talking $150,000
Exactly.
on a property.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
and like I said,
then
you can
that
close a single family here for 150 in
exactly,
cash.
that's the whole property. That's the whole property in Pittsburgh.
Yep. Yep.
So
Exactly. I mean, I had bought a fourplex for 80,000. So,
it
and
goes to show
I got
you,
financing for that. So I only close on. I mean, I closed on that property, the fourplex, and another 2 unit. I actually only brought $2,000 to the bank to the
wow,
close. Everything else came from the bank.
that that's good.
So
That's
you can
good.
leverage financing, leverage, the property, and the market is a key area. I can't do that anywhere else. Being
Yeah.
from Connecticut, my dad's from Connecticut. We're up there. And he's keeps telling me, like, you're lucky we live down here. Well, yeah, you can't do that where we're from. No, you can't.
You can. Yes. Yes. And I didn't even think about that because I wasted 3 years trying to make Florida work. The second I went somewhere else, I was like, it's this easy? Where was this? And all my friends were like, we've been trying to tell you, you just get out of Florida, bro.
Yeah, we have friends that have moved from Rhode Island, Mass, all the way. They're in Cleveland now because that's another
Yes.
market that's like Pittsburgh.
It's like Pittsburgh.
Exactly. You find that market. And we're not telling you to choose Pittsburgh. We're not telling you to choose Cleveland. Do your research on the market you want to be in. I
For
like
sure.
being hands on the property. I like being able to drive and be on site at any time.
Yeah.
But there are people we know who invest farther out, who can't be
Like
on
me,
site. I
right?
know somebody
Like
in
me.
Mass investing in Tennessee.
Yes. But to do that, you need to have a team that you can trust in those
Yes.
areas. You can't do it by yourself. That leverages into who you know, right? So when you're trying to get started in a new market, there's at least three things I think that you need to focus on. Number one is a property manager, someone who's there, who's done the game. If your property manager can be your realtor, that's just a win-win, right? And then you have a general contractor, someone that you can trust to fix problems when they arise, right? So those are the things that you need to get. And the third one is local contracts and vendors. Someone like plumbers, electricians, HVAC tenants, roofer. For example,
You can source all that out actually through your property manager because there's
right?
your key. That's your key person is your property manager. They have all these
Yes.
contacts. They have all these. Once you have that property manager in place, you really don't have to worry about any of the vendors
Yeah.
as
Because
long
yeah,
as they have these relationships. The biggest
yeah,
thing I would say though is if you're going to invest away from home, go out there,
a
walk
hundred
the
percent.
property yourself.
Make the
I was
make,
just
make
we were just talking a little bit ago to actually explore St. Louis. So we're gonna have to go out there at some point to
yeah,
wander the city.
wander. And you don't understand how big wandering is. I've been to Pittsburgh a couple times now, and just by driving the car around, getting a feel of the neighborhood, it makes you feel like a bridge away how big a
Yeah,
difference it is.
I'm still learning Pittsburgh. I am. I'm still learning Pittsburgh. I was just took my on-site property manager today told me, hey, if you go this way and this way, you guys should get back to Grace Alley faster. So I just
Oh
took a different
yeah.
took a different route today.
When I was there, I figured I was like, wait, where does this road go? We came, they not told us to come this way, but now we're going all the way this way towards Permane Brothers. Usually Permane
Yep.
Brothers is my landmark. If I made it, all right, if I follow this road, I'll make it. But I was like, no, you can take this road up here. And I was like,
Yeah.
huh.
Yeah, I went and looked at an old school with Carl. Him and I walked an old school that's still for sale. Uh, we left Grace, went to the school, wandered the property, went and came back. Well, today I passed it. I'm like, oh, that's where that is in relation to where I was at. You're still learning, you still don't know your market. But the biggest thing is get down there, and know your market.
Yes.
Continue to learn your
Yes.
market, go out and walk the properties. That is a non-negotiable.
And we're going to be talking a lot about Pittsburgh here because that's our market. Zach's and I focusing in Pittsburgh. We love the area. And I feel like Pittsburgh is a big, small city because so many things happens in Pittsburgh that there's different counties within just like a couple streets from each other, and then they're different taxes, different how everything is done. So I feel like if you can understand Pittsburgh when you go to like any other market, it's just like, oh man, this is pretty easy compared to what we were
Mhm.
doing here. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely.
another couple of contacts that you need to have besides the property manager and the GC is real estate attorneys. Real estate attorneys and
Yeah.
brokers. If you're trying to get larger multifamily deals, you can use a realtor for like your small ones, like your residential. If you're doing larger ones above 5, right? You want to look into brokers because brokers can help you find those kind of properties. But at the end of the
Commercial
day, you get
broker.
to get due
So,
diligence.
so to make the definition, you have a commercial broker and you have residential brokers. Essentially,
Right.
they're all brokers, but you want to make sure you have a commercial broker or commercial brokerage you're working with. Um,
Yes, yes. And
but
if you're lucky, find a realtor or a broker who's willing to teach because out there, but you have to come up front. Don't come up like you're a professional. You have to come up like, hey, I don't know about your market. Help me learn. And if you're even, like Zach said, if you're willing to go out there, even better. Because if you're ready to put a face to the name, not just around off the phone, right? They're even more willing to like you, help you.
yeah, yeah, and my biggest thing when buying a property and in that market was what's around it too. So
Yeah.
I did invest in these small little towns around bigger towns, right?
Right.
Knowing my market initially within that first 45-minute circle, I had Indiana, Pennsylvania, and I had Punxsutawney. And knowing those two larger towns helped me deal with the rest of the small towns I was investing in, because that's where your people went. That's where the
Mm,
Walmart was. That's where the stores were. That's where everyone went to for activities.
that's a good leverage. That's a good segue into our second topic regarding, how to pick a market due diligence. Now, every market's different, and you have to do things like neighborhood analysis, supply and demand. Sometimes you have tons of rental properties that aren't being rented because there's not that much people that leverage into another like population, right? I know some investors that don't invest anywhere unless the population is at least 100,000, you know, and I know people that are like, oh, population can be low because I know that's like a school town and people always go there for school and stuff like that. So knowing your market is really good. And also local rent comparables. Know what what you can get in that market for the price. Pittsburgh is the only market that I know right now, because Florida was not doing that, that actually does the 1% rule, right? So 1% rule is in some markets a joke, but in Pittsburgh, you can actually make that happen. If you guys
You can
don't
make
know
that
what the
happen, and
1%
you can
rule
actually do.
is,
I've done 2%.
yeah, see? Yeah. So for those who don't know what the 1% rule is, 1% rule is if you're purchasing the property for 100,000, it has to rent for at least 1,000, right? So that's the 1% rule, and vice versa when you're going up. Uh, but yeah, well, if we want to break down a little bit about market due diligence, I think the most important one is neighborhood analysis. You know what I've been doing with Pittsburgh? I've been trying to first I just narrowed down my market in Pittsburgh, and then now I've narrowed it down even more into like 4 zip codes. And those 4 zip codes, I try to learn them as like the back of my hand. That way, when I have any deal that comes in that zip code, it's like, oh, I've been on this street. Oh, I know what that is. I know what's this right behind it. I remember in Brentwood, there's a property like right on the main road of Brentwood, and I was like, how are they gonna park? I've seen that street. Where are my residents gonna park their cars if they want to stay? Triplex. I was like, I don't know where they're gonna park. Then I actually, luckily, at the same time I went to go help you at Grace, I was like, I did like a drive for doors, and I went to that property, and I said, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna do my investigation. So I went there, and I saw there's a stairway on the side of the property that goes all the way down past other people's backyards, and then there's a parking street right there. And I was like, this
Welcome to
is a
Pittsburgh.
walk.
Stairs
This
are
is
everywhere.
yeah, this is a crazy walk. I wonder how they're gonna get this rented.
Yep.
But yeah.
Pittsburgh's one of those cities that was built, I mean, with driveways irrelevant. They didn't even think about driveways when they built these houses, because you got row houses sitting on top of hills with staircases coming right down to the road.
Oh,
Well,
don't get
you
me
have
wrong.
on-street parking. I mean, that is
It
just
looks
the life of Pittsburgh.
beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It looks beautiful. I've seen some houses that have views. You wouldn't even imagine me being Floridian. It's all flat here. So imagine you like look at the backyard and you see hills and houses. And you're like,
Yep.
bro, this is
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah, get one
But
of them
yeah,
hills and just look over the city,
yes, exactly. So another thing that I think that you should consider, especially with market due diligence, consider your time horizon. For me, I was trying to get something done within the first 5 years, and because I gave myself 5 years of time, to be honest with you, I think I wasted too much time. And there's a lot of analysis paralysis. I don't know if you know. That's like when I'm analyzing this deal, and if
Yeah.
it doesn't work for me for whatever reason, I could always find a reason to like pull out of the deal. Right? I've never found a reason to like do the deal, pull the trigger. I was like, oh, maybe this roof is not working on this one. Maybe the seller doesn't want to negotiate. Maybe this guy just doesn't want to do seller financing. I found that a lot in Florida. But yeah, it's a lot of things you can do. So consider your time horizon. If you're trying to
Yeah,
do it
yeah, and don't
within
get
a
you're right, and don't
year,
get stuck in that analysis paralysis. First, before I even first started buying my own property, I was sitting at my desk, I was working out at the bank, and on the computer just searching Zillow, right? And I would analyze the property, and I would text my father, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he's a
mhm.
naysayer. He was like, "Why the hell do you want to do this? Just business? Why the heck do you want to do, rental properties? You're only going to get screwed." Well, finally, and he talked me out of every single one of them. They were all good deals, and he took me out of every single one of them. Finally, I find the first 5 units I purchased, uh, and I purchased for 115,000. Bank gave me 100% financing because I purchased at such a discount.
Right.
They actually appraised it a lot higher, and I purchased at 115. They gave me whole, the 100% financing. And then I text my father and I said, I bought a property.
Yeah.
He couldn't talk me out of it anymore. And I tell you what, buying that first property is actually one of the best ways to learn.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Because
Yeah.
at that point you can't afford to fail.
Well, yeah, you're all in. At that point, you're all in, right? Yeah, it took me a while to realize that as well. It took me to be honest with you, it took me forever to at least submit an LOI, right? I remember when I tried telling my wife, hey, we should sit a couple LOIs, and she was like, I don't know, that sounds scary because what if they accept? I was like, well, we'll just do it at such a
And
low price that if they do accept,
yeah,
that's a good offer, right?
yeah, exactly.
So,
Or
yeah.
I mean, yeah, one of the best things that I've had luck with was the 4 units that I purchased for 70K
Mhm.
and the 4-plex. I actually got off of estates.
Oh,
These are
from the
the
state.
family members who just wanted to get rid of them.
Oh,
I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to do this. Here's my lowball offer. Okay, fine.
wow. Yeah, that's lucky. But you only know that if you're out there, doing the grind.
Yeah,
Because you were
walking the
there,
property going on.
working on properties
Yep,
going on
exactly.
and
And
sending
in the
those
fourplex,
LOIs.
yeah, actually for the fourplex, the real estate agent that I had been using continuously for the 5 units I purchased, for the 4 units, the next 2 units, actually texts me. She goes, "Hey, I have something that you need to see." Because she actually was just the agent on both sides, but she thought of me when she got this listing. She goes, "You got to see
Mm,
this." So we walked the property, we looked at it, and I gave her an offer right then and there. She called up the seller, they accepted. We had documents signed by midnight.
wow.
But that relationship goes back to relationships where that's key to have those
Yeah,
people in that market.
yeah. Your team. And even if
Yep,
you're there, it's really good to have a team. Like now, I mean, Zach has an amazing team. From you do the realtor and stuff yourself, but you get like contractors as well as PMs and who not how. I remember you telling me about that.
exactly. Who know how? Who know how? Do the 20% you're good at, and the other 80% can pass off to somebody else.
Yeah, leverage other people's time. Of course, you got to pay for that time, but you're leveraging
Of
their time
course.
to make you save your
Yeah.
time to do
Yeah.
more
So
things.
I mean, I have a leasing agent. I have a on-site property manager. I have maintenance. You know, I have my wife who helps me out with all this stuff as well. But I have a team we've built to do this, to manage our units. And now let's me get on the ground and walk properties.
Now, I think we've gone very far into market due diligence, who, not how to pick a market, etc. But we also have to start with what you know. I remember from when I started to learn about investing, just investing in general. The reason why I got interested in real estate is because at the time I got married, and my wife was like, "Hey, let's go buy a house," and knowing, unfortunately for her, I'm the kind of guy that said, okay, if I'm gonna buy a house, I want to learn everything about purchasing a house and like, what I need to do, blah, blah, blah. And then I picked up a couple books, and unfortunately, the first book I picked up was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad told me that a house was not an asset; it's a liability. After I learned that, it was game over. I was like, "Liv, we can get a house, but then we're gonna be paying for it forever. We won't be able to use that money elsewhere to make us more money. Why don't our first house be an investment property, and we use that income that we get from that purchase to purchase our dream house in the future?"
Yeah,
To this day, we're still renting, but she understood because I actually had her read Rich Dad Poor Dad as well. She understood that mindset. And because of that mindset shift, we're able to see like, okay, maybe renting for a little bit, especially if you're getting it cheap enough, is not that bad. If you can rent for the same much as you can purchase a property, you should just purchase a property because then you can use what I'm thinking house hacking, purchase a
hmm
quad or a duplex, whatever, live in one, and then have the other three people pay for the property while you're living in there. House hacking's
that's
a really
exactly
good
right.
way
That's
to get
exactly how
started.
I would start over if I had to. We actually we own our own home, but that was well before I started investing. Right. But what I did is I purchased this property. This property was $20,000 at foreclosure. Purchased it, put work into it. I got a mortgage against it, paid off all my debts. But I got a second mortgage against it again, and actually bought my first rental property using
Okay.
that money. I should say what was supposed to be my first rental property. The house next door to me went up for sale, or actually, I kind of convinced him to sell to me. Um, but now my
He's
brother
like,
lives there.
oh,
Now my
oh,
brother
okay.
lives there. He bought it off me. So what was supposed to be my first rental property turned into my brother's house. But that got me going, right?
Right.
So then I moved on to buying actual rental properties. But that is exactly how I would restart if I could go back and redo it, would be to house hack, to do a 3 or
Yeah,
4 unit
to house that.
first, live in
Oh,
one
for
unit,
sure.
because you can buy those with an FHA, you can buy those with 3.5% down. So you're talking, $7,000 for a $200,000 house.
Right. And it's very a good way to learn as well. If you want
Yeah.
to get started in this game, you don't have that much saved up. House hacking is a way to check it out because 100% you will learn a ton if you house
Yeah.
hack. Trust
Yeah.
me, just
And
like
again,
Zach said before.
if you don't want to do the hands-on work, the hands-on management, still hire that property manager. You can still do
Oh
that.
yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, and then you can actually use that property manager as like I'm a renter too, bro. I just pay this guy, and he
Exactly.
comes to my door every day. I pay him, and then I'm just like the rest of y'all. They'll never know you're
Yep.
the owner.
Exactly.
Yeah, house hacking is a good way. I think another way. Find a partner, right? Partner is someone who's actually in
Yeah.
it. Like so, I joined a bunch of mastermind. I spent all the money to join these mastermind and stuff, but I have to say, if you can find a really good one people that are like-minded like you trying to learn trying to willing to teach, it's really helpful for you to partner with someone else who has some skin in the game, who's done what you've done, and then you can leverage their knowledge into your business. It's like you're trying to do something that's never been done before, right?
Yeah, it's a lot
It
easier to find someone like-minded than it is to actually have somebody learn and be interested in what you like, right?
exactly
The
exactly
amount of effort I put into talking to my sister or brother-in-law or brother and be like, "Hey, read this book," or "Hey, let's
oh
do
man,
something together." And then now when I have the money, I'll do it. Or no, this is that. It's always the next excuse with anybody in
right,
general, with anybody
yeah.
who's not of the same mindset.
Yeah, I've been down that road too, talking to family members, my mom, my cousins, my brother even. My brother was like, "Oh, I want to figure out how to make some more extra income." I was like, "Well, you can make extra income doing this, this will actually pay you this much a month, and then it's like recurring as long as you hold it." And he was like, "Oh, I don't know, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to do all that." It's like, "But you just asked to make more money. You don't have
That's
to
one
keep
of the
finding a
worst
new
pieces I get all
job."
that. A lot of work. Not when you
Yeah,
have a PM, not when you have a property
yeah,
manager,
that's
a
what the
good one
PM's
in
for.
place.
He's
Now
oh yeah, but then I
you
gotta
have to
pay him
make sure you monitor
percentage.
the reports and you look at what's
Yeah.
going on, and you have to be involved in the property manager, as far as what they're telling you what's going on. Don't you can't set it and forget it,
Right.
but you know,
I mean, it's
there's
like
they
checking your
handle a
stocks,
lot of
right?
that.
When people buy stocks, they still check the price every so often to make sure, is this going down? This is going up, you know?
You would hope they do. You would hope they do. I saw an ad the other day about, I don't know if it was E Trade or Fidelity or something like that, talking about, oh, you just set it and forget it, and you can, don't worry about all your trades. We'll take care of it all.
It depends on what you
That's
buy.
how they take their
But yeah,
fees. They're
yeah, their
draining.
fees. Oh my God. Yeah, their fees. Yeah. That's a good segue to another thing that we want to talk about. Understand the risks of each market. So
Oh yes.
yeah, so every market has the risks. For example, a good one is Florida. If I were to invest in Florida, I will not bank much on cash flow. Don't get me wrong, you could probably find a flow aspect of Florida, but Florida right now is an appreciation. Most of it is an appreciation market. I say that because uh, don't get me wrong, you probably could find enough cash to break even, but if you're like expecting like where I'm going to get my most money out of, maybe not this year because I've been seeing prices go down here recently. It's going to be appreciation. Going to be
Yeah,
appreciation.
yeah. I mean, it depends on the market, obviously, but I mean, like investing in cash flow. If you want to get out of your 9 to 5, if you want to leave that job, you want to make sure you have the cash flow.
Hmm.
And it depends on how much money you need per month. I mean, it's right out of Rich Dad Poor Dad, but make sure you have enough cash flow coming in to replace your income.
Right.
And a good rule of thumb that I use is a minimum of $100 per door uh, when we're talking about cash flow. Sometimes,
That's a good rule of thumb.
yep, $100 per door is a minimum. Uh, I have in the past, I mean, it depends on the property, and some of those estate properties that I purchased, those were cash flowing $200 to $300 per door.
Wow.
So they were really bankrolling a lot of what we were doing when I first started to expand.
That is really good actually. True. And that's before expenses or after expenses?
It's always after expenses. Your cash flow is always
After
after
expenses.
expenses. Yep,
Okay.
that includes your mortgage, that includes your insurance, your annual taxes, includes it all. Best part about my rural properties is that a lot of the tenants actually take care of the majority of utilities and the lawn mowing and the lawn upkeep and all that stuff. The snow upkeep.
Snow removal,
Snow,
something you
yeah,
also have to think about when you go to certain
snow
properties.
removal killed me on Grace Valley this year. I mean, we're talking like
Really?
dollars in January because of those storms.
Wow. What did you have to remove? Like, you have to move all the, you had to clear up the driveway as well, or just like the walking paths
I had them do the driveways and salting. Yep.
and salting?
Yep.
Dang. Yeah, something that you have to
So
think about.
that's the big thing about single family homes is you can leverage the type of tenant too, and that's a big look at the market too. We'll talk about that in a second. But the type of tenant you have
Really?
really can look at what type of house you're going to buy, or property you're going to buy, right? Who do you want to be your tenant, or vice versa? What kind of property you want to buy? Now you have to use this type of tenant. Grace Valley, a 48 unit complex, has a different tenant than a single family home does. This
That's
tenant
true.
is somebody who would like to buy their house, thinks they can't afford to buy their house or can't afford to buy their house or their credit score and all that stuff, but something's preventing them from buying a home, but they're okay with doing all the snow removal. They're okay with doing the lawn. They're okay with, they know that paying for all utilities is required.
Right.
You have that homeowner type of person versus you have the person who's going to want, the plow there, the lawn mowed, all the pests taken care of by somebody else, all that stuff. Every problem's going to be, your problem. Whereas a single family renter, a lot of times will take care of a lot of stuff on their own. And that depends on how you want to manage the property too. Do you allow them to do that, or do you enforce that you need to make sure that you take care of that stuff?
That's very, that's very
When I
insightful,
first
actually.
started out, it was a lot of, yeah, you can take care of that. Yeah, you can fix that. That's okay. Now, as
Really?
we grow, it's let me take care of it. Let my team take care of it.
Mm.
One thing I did learn too is that when tenant moves out, they've done some things to the house, to the walls, they've patched it wrong, okay. And it's just
I
me
saw
being,
that 48. 48. 48, they did a lot, man. But you get those are the lifers though. Sometimes if
yeah,
they feel like, yeah, I've done so much, I'm just gonna stay.
yep, yeah. You get more lifers in a single family, or maybe even like a duplex, than you would, a complex.
Right.
Unless you have that lifer, like I have a couple lifers who've been at Grace for 10, 11 years that are just older retirees that don't want to deal with anything.
Hmm.
That's a
That
different
makes
type of
sense.
tenant too.
That makes sense. Also, a good thing that you're talking about tenant is also know about your when you're analyzing your market, and the laws regarding like landlord friendly relationships or regulations, or if it's
Yeah.
landlord friendly, tenant friendly. Also check
Yeah.
the
If you're going to
affordability,
self-manage
right?
your property, make sure you do get that attorney to even draft you a lease.
Right.
Make sure, if you're not going to manage your own properties, utilize that property manager, because they already know those laws. They already know what's in place. But if you are self-managing, get that attorney to draft that lease. Go ahead and do your research. Go to, I've actually read the actual bills, the laws, pull up the Pennsylvania state government site and read the pages and pages of jargon, just to
Wow.
understand what the law is.
It's easier
Um,
now with AI. It's easier
what's
now
that?
with AI, but
Yeah.
it's easier
Yeah.
now with AI. Man. We didn't have that back then.
Yeah. Yeah. And join these groups too. There are groups that teach you things that you join the masterminds, right? Pittsburgh has a local real estate investment group that puts on educational webinars.
No, that is true. I learned that if you're trying to get started into real estate, like picking the market, find a group first. Because when you
Mhm.
have questions, it's always good to send your questions and like reassurance is there. When you say, I remember I was trying to figure out what was I trying to figure out. I was thinking that hey, it's okay to like if someone's squatting, I was like, why can't you just change the locks, right? So no, you can't do that, because we change the locks now. It feels like you're trying to kick them out. Well, but like, yeah, but my name's on the title. It's like, yeah, but It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big issue. Squatting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that you
Yeah,
should
and
analyze.
handling a situation like that wrong can get you in a lot of trouble.
Yes. Yes. More trouble than you think it's worth. And then you'll be like, I should just get a property manager. The thing I think you should analyze when picking the market is affordability. Believe it or not, Florida has a really bad affordability. I think rents right now, depending on your area where you're living, but in the Miami-Dade area, Miami-Dade County, I think it's at least like half of people's income goes towards rent. That's
Mm.
insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that kind of puts in perspective a little bit, on how do you qualify a tenant, right? Because
Right.
we asked for 3 times rent up here in Pittsburgh. So, so
That's
basically
true.
we want their rent to only be a third of their income per month.
I remember my friend was trying to rent one of his condos in the heart of Miami. And he was like, yeah, how much are you looking to get for it? And he's like, I'm trying to get 4,200. And I was like, 4,200? I don't even, that's insane.
That's an unheard of rental rate up here in Pittsburgh. Absolutely unheard of.
That would be crazy. For 4,200, I expect to get like my own limousine that come pick me up. He's like,
Yeah,
yeah, but you should get to understand our view. We're like right on the water. He's like, I don't care about water. I care
right,
about
right. He'd
space.
be better off to rent it as an Airbnb short-term rental.
I agree. I agree. But then you run into it's a
Then
condo, so
yeah,
you
there
run
was a
into
whole different headache for those.
yeah. And then another thing you think of is pro HOA or con HOA. Sometimes HOAs can be good, especially if it's like a new development and you're like one of the first people to actually get there.
I
If you
am
get part of the
still
HOA,
uh, I am
I
still
know.
completely against HOAs, even though I think I mentioned it before, my condo in Myrtle Beach isn't an HOA.
Really. So
Yes,
I heard good things about HOAs. I've heard bad things about HOAs. Good thing about HOA, they cut the grass, right? They
they cut
cut
the
the
grass, they
grass
do all
and
the maintenance on the exterior of the building, they do all that stuff. Yeah,
they do all that stuff. Bad thing about HOA is not only do they have to pass leases with you, they have to pass leases with the HOA as well. And if the HOA for whatever
depends on the
reason
HOA rules.
determines yes, but
That would depend on the
sometimes
HOA rules. What's in their bylaws?
true, true.
The
But a
reason,
lot
one
of
of the big
them
reasons I bent on buying a property within this HOA, it's actually the Myrtle Beach Resort. So you can like look up
okay.
mbrresort.com and go in there, and they have like 6 different pools. There's a lazy river. There's a playground for kids. There's 2 restaurants, store, 2 lounges. There's a gym, um, and we're like a 30-second walk from the beach.
Okay. I have to ask, how much is that HOA? Because if there's all that, how much is that HOA a month?
$850 a month.
Brother, I have people paying like 2,000 a month and they don't get any of that. They get they get like a beach, no, they get like a pool and security access and a parking spot. That's it. They don't get any of the. You said 2 restaurants, a lazy river.
2
That's
restaurants, lazy river.
insane.
Yeah, yeah. Hot tubs, multiple hot tubs, 6
That's
pools.
that's worth
Yeah,
it.
they put on events. And that's one of the reasons why I was convinced to join this one. Now, downside is that we have to follow their rules, right?
Okay.
So we use it as an Airbnb. So our Airbnb per HOA guidelines can only house a maximum of 6 people
Okay. For at a time?
at a time.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's
So it's
fine.
not bad. It's a 2-bedroom. The interior hallways, if you're thinking about a hotel, you're thinking about the hallway in the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
They are the most ugly things I've ever seen.
Really?
This I don't know what you want to call it, kind of blue with dingy carpet. Nothing, no decorations on the exterior, nothing outside. Not allowed to have anything outside your door.
Okay.
Everything is
Not
basically
even
just this is how the hallway is.
interesting.
But everything inside is yours, right? That's how condo works. The building itself is owned by the condo, the property, the interior, everything inside the walls is owned by you. But yeah, they take care of a lot of the maintenance of the building, um, and the maintenance on those pools, hot tubs,
Yeah. And the
gyms.
restaurants, gyms,
Yep.
lazy river. I don't know. more you talk about it, the better it sounds.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, does the HOA help with evictions? Let's say if you had to do
Yeah, it's a good
process an
question. We've
eviction.
never actually ran into that issue. We've never run into that issue. We have had every short-term renter come and go as scheduled.
Yeah. That's something else you can also see, because if it's a tenant friendly place, sometimes the eviction timelines are something that you need to understand and make sure you understand, because it could be for some places like
Oh yeah,
Florida
absolutely.
up to a month.
Know your tenant, know your eviction procedures, know your tenant
Yeah.
law.
Yeah.
And depends on, I don't know how this works in any other state, but Pennsylvania has different magistrate courts, and every
Really?
magistrate judge can be a little different. So know your
And you
judge
don't
in
get
that
to
market.
choose, right? It just bases on what.
Not even the county, it could be literally the district court.
Wow.
Yes, so Indiana, PA actually has a different judge than 20 minutes down the road in Clymer, then
Right.
20 minutes down the road the other direction in Homer City. Different
Huh.
judges. So know your judges too. Know what they like. Know what they want to see. Every magistrate court here in PA, the judge can and is allowed to tweak the forms a little bit differently.
What do you mean?
When you file for an eviction, right? Pennsylvania allows you. We have written into our leases that every time a tenant signs a lease, that they waive their right to a 10-day notice. Okay.
Okay.
Now, a 10-day
For
notice is
when
required
the
by law, unless it's waived, to notify the tenant that they have a 10-day notice to pay or quit. At 10
okay.
days goes by, after that 10 days mark, we can file for eviction. But our leases waive that right. And it's a bold print. They're made aware. Most judges have no issues. The one
Okay.
judge in Homer City that I have property in, you can't do that for her. You have to
Really?
provide that person the 10-day notice.
Wow. I did not know that they can just tweak it like that. Thinking now
However,
that
they
guy's
go on the
know your
court.
judges, huh? Man, I
Well, the
gotta
thing
write
is,
that
around
down.
here, the district judge is elected.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're elected everywhere, aren't they?
I don't know. Sometimes they're placed in places, right? But
They place
well,
them. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes they're places. Like the Clymer judge. The Clymer judge is an attorney. I know him very well because he was actually my divorce attorney,
Okay.
and he got elected into is a district judge in Clymer. The Homer City judge never went to law school.
Wait, how did they become a judge? Oh, because they got elected.
She got elected.
Oh,
Yes, her father was the judge in Homer City for decades. So when
wow.
he retired, she ran and got elected.
I thought that was a requirement. Dude.
Dude, I have no police experience. I could run for sheriff.
Yeah. Like that, at least have that on your resume. At least you don't do a course. Man.
But
Dude,
know your
okay.
judges, know your market, know all
Know
those
your
ins and
judges,
outs.
know your market. You're teaching me something new now. Man.
Yeah, there's a lot to choose from, a lot to know, a lot to choose from. Knowing your market, knowing the area you want to buy. I know you said you averaged everything. You just narrowed everything down to 5 zip codes in Pittsburgh. There are dozens of zip codes,
There's so many.
but know the area. And I guess that's the thing. I've never actually done the sit down at the computer, pull up demographics, pull up this, pull up that, do my due diligence beforehand. A lot of it is I'm buying this property because it's a great deal,
Right.
and then
You
I'm
do it
going to learn the
after?
market, or I'm going to
Ah,
adapt to make sure that it works.
I get that. I get that 100%. And
Right?
that I think is better because it makes you, again, it's the analysis paralysis. If I'm sitting there like trying to understand everything, the second I don't understand something, I'm like, I'm not going to get this deal because I understand it. And
Yeah.
I think my wife is like that a lot. She's like, why are we doing it this way? And I was like, because that's how it is. She's like, but why? It's like, just don't worry about it. Let me handle it. I've been saying that a lot recently. Yeah, man. It's
Yeah,
like,
I do a lot of jumping feet first, and swimming.
I like that approach. I might have to, copy that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a couple properties you had sent me in the past to look at, and
Mhm.
I had sent back to you. I had sent you a few, and you come back with what about this or what about this? I don't like the neighborhood or this, that, the other thing. And I'm like, that's all things you could adapt to.
True. That's 100% something you could adapt to. A lot of stuff is, I think one of those is, for example, I remember I sent one to you that was on Rowan Street. Rowan Street was like really close. It's like just above East Liberty. East Liberty, where everything's happened. the big expansion and stuff like that. But Rowan Street is on the other side of the tracks, they called it. Not really, a lot of people are leaving that area to go to East Liberty. So when I said to that, I sat down and I figured that out. Overall, the deal looked nice. You even walked it. Remember, that's the one with the different color units. The floor is bad. It needs to be completely redone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, why can't we just do it? And it was telling me that for the price that they're asking, it doesn't make sense because if you want to get appraised and sell, it's not an East Liberty property. It needs to sell for Rowan Street property. And that's why we had to pull back out of that one. And another one on Brentwood is a nice area. There's a property up the street from Brentwood that the guy's trying to sell for Brentwood prices. But unfortunately, he's right at the barrier where it's still city of Pittsburgh, now Allegheny County. So he's like, no, this is Brentwood. On the map, it says Brentwood. Like, I know what it says on the map, bro.
Your address is Pittsburgh, right?
But your address is Pittsburgh. Yeah. And it's trying to have him understand that. It was so bad because now no realtor willing to take his property because they know that they can't sell it for the price he's trying to get it to. So even on like Zillow stuff, it says for sale by owner, which I've never seen on Zillow before. Really? I've never seen that. Yeah. So yeah, man.
But yeah, that's a hang up for agents too, because we can be out there like, listen, this property is going to sell for this. Here's your range and where we're going to list it. And then we're like, no, I want this. I'm only going to take it for this. And we either have to say, well, sorry, I can't be your listing agent then, or list at that price.
Just list it in hope
and pray.
Dream, right? Yeah. Hope that someone's not going to do what I did, which was look at the market a little bit too hard and be like, that doesn't make much sense.
You have better odds of getting a good price on your home when you sell it listed down here. Reason being is listed down here, you have more interest and you have a bidding war.
And you can get it to go up here. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen the bidding wars.
Up here, way up here, they look at it and go, nope.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, that's a lot of people who are listing properties in Pittsburgh, even some multifamilies, even some duplex, triplexes, are listing it extremely high. And I've reached out and I've submitted an LOI and I've told them, listen, this is what I'm not willing to pay for this. Well, they won't accept that. They want this. Well, dude, you know it's going to sit there for a while. So reach back out to me when you want to sell it. There's a 34 unit that I reached out to last year that you and I, we looked at it, we analyzed it again. We just reached out again this year.
I remember
and he still won't come down to where it needs to be.
Well, it's reasonable, and it's been there for a whole year. Yeah. And then even the guy that was trying to sell it to before probably pulled out because it's not worth after he analyzed it. His due diligence.
Exactly.
And that's another thing that when it comes
to on it if you're able to sell it, because it's been listed for an entire year and it's been out of contract twice.
Yeah. I think that right there brings us to I think our last point here is factoring your emotional tolerance. Because when it comes to investing, you can't be emotional. You got to be like, treat it as a business. And then so many times, I think this happened to my wife where she sees something, she wants to close on it so badly. And she's gone through all the steps and then we lose it. And she gets like, no, I was like, that's just part of the game. We find another one. She gets so invested, like emotionally invested in something. And she wants it to work.
Absolutely.
I understand.
I mean, it's hard to not get invested. It's really hard. You put in all the work, you put in all the time, and you we came so close on the 28 unit. We were close to closing on that. So yeah, when we did lose that was an emotional hit. But we can pick ourselves up and move on to the next.
No, I get it. It's just the point to where I said, hey, I've always think because when you see something on the market and you want to buy it right away, people think that, if I don't get it, I'm never going to get another one, right? But there's so many deals out there, and if you're really good at analyzing, you're
never going to run out of deals.
You're never going to run out of deals.
There's always more.
Right. And then you might see something that unfortunately was better than what you already got, right? So like, oh man, this came on the market. I wish I would have waited, So you get to that.
Imagine if I had started buying properties when I had been texting my father about, hey, should I buy this one? Then I wouldn't have bought
exactly.
Bought, right?
Exactly. Understanding your emotional tolerance is a really big key, because emotional decision making is the number one reason why investors lose money, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. They get emotional and they emotions are a good guide. They're not a good decision maker.
I agree. Yeah. So if I had to pick some books to help you get started in picking a market in real estate investing. First, I'd focus on, before you even start picking a market, first you have to understand the mindset. So we already talked about one book here, which was The Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a
I
great
think,
one to start off with.
yeah, to start off with. I think the second one is Atomic Habits. That one's good to get your habits in, like, because when you're trying to pick a market, you have to be okay with failure, right? I was in the beginning when I started this thing, I wasn't okay with failure. Failure could be many things, and for me was I would I will go on like Redfin or Zillow, trying to find a market, trying to find a deal, and I'll see something and I'll pencil it out. I was like, okay, it works at this, and I'll try to submit an LOI, and the realtor would just laugh in your face. I've gotten someone
Yeah.
literally
Oh, yeah.
laugh at your face.
Or they never respond. Oh yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
absolutely. No, to
So
back up a little bit on, yeah, Atomic Habits is a good book. I've read it once, but one of the books I read over and over again, and it helps to like make a great foundation, right? And I think that's where
yeah,
you need to be is a great foundation. So you need to read the Millionaire Mindset.
the Millionaire Mindset. Is that the same? What about the
I'm
Secrets
sorry,
to the Millionaire Mind? I have that one.
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. That's one, and then yeah, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. That's the one I'm talking about. And then
Okay.
I'm trying to look at my books here.
Yeah, I got
Oh,
my
you can,
books too. I found Secrets to the
yeah,
Millionaire Mind.
seven
Yeah, I like that
seven
one.
habits to highly effective people.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay.
Another one I like
And
too is emerging real estate markets.
emerging real estate markets.
Emerging real estate
Okay.
markets.
Huh. I think something
So
that also psychology of money is also a really good one because it teaches you how to break that habit of thinking of working for money and
yeah,
making money work for you.
yep.
Right. Yeah. So these are some books that I would recommend everyone read. Again, that was Rich Dad Poor Dad, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Atomic Habits, and the two that you said,
Yeah. I said the 7 habits of highly effective people.
7 Habits of Effective People, and
Yep.
the last one was
The last one was emerging real estate markets.
Emerging Real Estate Markets. Those are good ones. Read those books, and then when you start to go into picking a market, focusing it down, I think it will help you. You can get those other markets books like I think Big Pockets has a bunch of them, long-term real estate investing and
Yeah.
small real estate investing versus large, but mostly value real estate investing books as well.
Something I did too is right after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I actually went down the rabbit hole to all of his books and all of his affiliate books. Right.
Really?
So even Ken McElroy books, ABC's the Real Estate Investing, all of them, right? I mean, you could see there's a stack of the purple books on the top shelf. There's 2
Right.
stacks, all his affiliate books. There's definitely a lot of knowledge in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have to read it. You too. What I do a lot is I use audiobooks. Audiobooks
Absolutely.
is like the leverage that I use, especially when I'm working out or going on
Dude, I
walks
drive for
or
2
even
hours every
driving.
day.
Oh man, you can finish a book a week.
Yeah, I drive
You
for
can
2
finish
hours
a
one
book a
way.
week.
So
One
exactly.
way, that's 4 hours, bro.
Yeah.
Some books start 4 hours.
Yep. Yeah, there's been days I've finished a book and a half in a day just listening to it.
Yeah,
So,
man, that's actually really good. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Now that I have to travel, if I have to fly to Pittsburgh, I just need to get an audiobook and I listen to it on the plane and I come back. That's 4 hours, right? If I have to
absolutely.
drive up to Orlando, it'd be another 4 hours and stuff like that.
You
But
can finish
yes,
both
I think,
books in 4 hours on the audio.
yeah,
And
I
listen to
think,
them on repeat too. I do that a lot. I will actually listen to Think and Grow Rich, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind on repeat, one after the
really,
other. Yep. The Science of Getting Rich is another one. Very short
oh,
book, but definitely a good one that gets your mindset shifted. But listening to them on repeat like sets that permanent, right? I always catch one more thing, one different thing when I listen to it.
yeah, I get that. When you watch, like, it's like when you listen to the same thing over and over again, you pick up on something that you didn't, technically you did hear, is that it didn't
Exactly.
stick.
Right. So
Yeah. All right. I think if you were to focus on how to pick a market in real estate, those are the things that you should focus on. Again, I go through them real quick. There's the population growth, figure out if this market's going up or down, whatever. The job economy, if there's job growth, economic diversity, etc., and landlord friendly relations, right? Determine whether or not that market is landlord friendly or tenant friendly. This is very, very important because if you don't do this, you might
yeah.
invest in somewhere like California where it's very tenant friendly and you can't get someone out of your unit for a couple of years. Couple of years, man, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fun
Affordability.
ball. Completely
Yeah,
different
yeah.
around here. I know Mitch had mentioned Massachusetts is like 3 months, but
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, you're talking 30 days. It's pretty quick.
Yeah, as long as you mean that's just something you have to keep. As long as you keep your books in line, right? If you're like
Absolutely.
all over the place, then you might take a little bit longer. So
So
after the landlord-friendly regulations, you have to also check if it's affordability to price ratios, see if it beats the 1% rule, etc., and all things like that. You also have the market due diligence, right? Check your neighborhood analysis, crime rates, school districts, property conditions, if it snows, if it has a lot of snow, how much snow, that's something I've been figuring out in Pittsburgh. Because when that snow came, I asked my friend, it's like, does that snow like this? I was like, no, bro, that's like once in 100-year snow. It's like, I don't know, man, because yeah, it's been so pretty often recently, bro. I don't know what's going on. Every time you come up here, it starts snowing. Stop coming up.
yeah, I think both times you were up in Pittsburgh, it was frigidly cold and
It's
snowing.
cold. Just stay in Florida. And then there's after the neighborhood less, just supply and demand, right? You want to determine whether or not you have, if you were to rent a unit at the area, will you be able to get it rented? You can check things like new constructions in the area, as well as vacancy rates, absorption rate for new housing units. If something, pop-ups, how quickly do they get sold? Local rent comparables. Make sure that when you're actually going to put your property for rent, make sure you can see around and say, oh, will this actually rent for what it is? But my rule of thumb usually is if it's at like 900, I do like 850, just to see, because I want someone in it, I don't want to be at market, I want to be a little bit under market to make sure that someone actually rents my unit.
Yeah, absolutely.
The three things to know before you get started: find a PM. PM is very important. PM can literally make or break your deal. If you're just starting and you'd know nothing about real estate, I would recommend that you pay a PM fee and you have that PM teach you everything about property management if you can. Because don't get me wrong, you can do it, have the PM do everything for you, but this is scale nation, right? So if you want to scale to 120 to 300 units, that 10% fee off of 200 units it's going to be kind of big. That's a big chunk of change that you're paying for your property manager that you could just keep yourself and make it in-house, right?
But again,
GC, what's up?
you don't want to start off self-managing properties away from you. If you're
True,
self-managing properties
100%.
that are 10-hour drive from you, you want to have that team in place. So get the property
Right.
manager, build that team, and then once you have that leverage that you can pay your people, then you can remove the property manager.
It also depends on your risk tolerance too, right? If you're in the house hacking, I can understand not getting PM for a duplex, right? There's only one other unit and it's right next to you. And if you really needed to manage it, you could, because you can literally see it every day when you come home, especially if you're still working. But if you're doing I don't know, 5-10 units away from you, even if it's an hour, 30 minutes away, you want a PM, if it's your first purchase, right? You want a PM there that you can leverage, because at that time, it's those calls, right? People say, oh, I don't want to get a call in the middle of the night. They're telling me that their toilet's not working.
Yeah.
They won't call you. They'll call the PM.
If you're self-managing, that's the stuff you got to deal with too.
That's the stuff you got to deal with. Exactly. Not only that, you have to build your team. That's the next thing. General contractor, someone that you have to know. General contractor, even your maintenance guys, your maintenance crews, the guys that can flip your units, the guys that are going to change that toilet that was broken that you got to call for at midnight, right? The one that's apparently Pittsburgh, the guy that's going to call, make sure to get someone out there to fix your burst pipe before it floods your unit. Plan just learned about this year. So yeah. And your real estate attorneys for the ones that can help you draft those leases. If you're doing it self-managed, it's good to have, but if you're doing it with a property manager, make sure you leverage the property manager. If you're going straight to large multifamily, which you 100% can do, you can make sure you get some brokers on your side, people you can have conversations with, multiple conversations a day, reach out to them, ask them about, how they're doing, ask them about what deals they can send to you, and even ask them, even what I've been doing recently is even deals that they sent to me that I know I'm not going to buy, underwrite them, tell them my price, which I know is not going to work, and send it back to them. That way, sometimes they just want to get a list of, hey, this is what people are willing to buy this unit for.
Yeah.
So that is all the things that we have for pick a market. I think I'm going to work on some type of sheet and I'll provide it to you guys. Check it out in the description. I'll probably share it via Google Docs. But all right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. Carl couldn't be here today. I think he's not feeling well. Last I reached out to him, he said that he was apparently his his bathroom exploded. So I don't know. He told me his bathroom exploded, but then he told me like jackhammering his basement. I was like, bro, I don't know what's going on. Hopefully he can be here for the next one, and we'll follow up. Oh, and happy Easter, guys! Today is Monday.
Yeah,
happy
absolutely.
Easter. So I want to say happy Easter to everyone, and thank you for joining us on this.